if you look at Nigel Farage's history in praising Vladimir Putin, and the way he said this and wasn't extremely clear about what he meant by it, if that's indeed what he meant, it will have been taken, as it has been by most people, of him suggesting that there was some form of excuse created by, or some form of reason created by the EU and NATO for Vladimir Putin to go into Ukraine. Put that again into context with the support that Nigel Farage has for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump coming out with the same sort of statements actually doesn't make me believe that he was trying to be subtle and suggest that this was purely the excuse that Putin was using. And of course, he would never use that himself. He didn't say that. He didn't clarify that. And therefore, he's peddling the line that Putin is feeding to his own people, but he's peddling it out into the West. And that will be clipped by Russia Today and other Russian TV programs and played back to the Russian people, saying, even influential Western politicians are saying this as well. So look, it's justifying what we're doing. He's undermined a lot of the positions.
Philip, I'm not quite sure what it's going to be, but we've been talking about this. Perhaps we should just play the clip. It's about 25 seconds of what he said on provoking Putin.
I stood up in the European Parliament in 2014 and I said, and I quote, "There will be a war in Ukraine." Why did I say that? It was obvious to me that the ever eastward expansion of NATO and the European Union was giving this man a reason to his Russian people to say they're coming for us again and to go to war.
It's interesting, that analysis. Did you read that as saying it's basically our fault, the EU and Ukraine, we were a member of the EU, or an attempt to sort of say that if you push on Russia's borders, if NATO expands like this, you are going to provoke the bear?
No, from to say that happened in 2014. 2014 is when Russia first invaded Ukraine and took Crimea, bloodlessly, and then created, it was the FSB that created the two false or as they call democratic republics, or republics of Luhansk and Donetsk, that created that conflict in the eastern part of Ukraine and the Russian-speaking part of Ukraine since then. If those had been the excuses, how would he then apply that same logic to the Russian conflict in Georgia and the Russian conflict in Chechnya in 2000 and elsewhere? Putin has got an expansionist policy. He wants to recreate the old Soviet Union. He wants all of the old Soviet Union countries back again, subservient to Russia in the same way that Belarus is. He's been stating that for a lot longer than since 2014. He started his information operation against Ukraine back in I think it almost goes back to 2001, 2002. You started to see an awful lot of rhetoric and things that were coming in through then. So he's been planning this for a long, long time. And the fact that Ukraine was starting to move more towards the West doesn't expand. The EU doesn't expand. People look at the economic potential that there is in joining such a power bloc and go, that's good for us. And they apply to do it and have to meet lots of criteria. Before Putin invaded, Ukraine was nowhere near meeting the criteria to join the EU or to join NATO. And it's his invasion that has put all of this support in to help them get to that position.